We will remind everybody that we're live streaming. I'm counting for the quorum, Yama, but
Yes, I figure, yes, that would be important.
we only need one more person for we only need one more person for the quorums. I think we're in good shape. Let's see.
Yes, it's only
I'm gonna
31. So we're in
we're in good shape. I'm gonna count one more time and make sure I'm not wrong. Actually, I think we're good. I'm gonna count one more time. Oh, Xavier's here. We've got a quorum. So we're all good.
Woohoo! Yes. All right. I mean, not that we obviously want as many people here as possible, including those who are live streaming, but it's good to have quorum so we can actually do business. Good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. I know it feels like, I mean, the month is basically almost over, but it's wonderful to see your face in 2023 and hope the year, at least the beginning of the year, has been treating you well. Again, I am Ioma Ruka, and I'm the chair of the Durham PreK Governance Committee. And so we will officially start the meeting. What's on the next slide, please? As usual, we know to sort of do welcome. Obviously, there's so many of us, we can't do it verbally. So of course, feel free in the chat box to introduce yourself, including your name, your agency, organization, or program, your title, role, and anything that may be helpful for the group to know about you, or even like how your year's going or how you enjoyed, hopefully, some time off and maybe what you did. So we're just glad to be in this space together. So feel free to introduce and say hello. And we are all seasoned with Zoom, at least as much as we can be seasoned. And so obviously we're going to continue our virtual meeting protocol. So as usual, mute unless speaking, just again to reduce interference. And also a reminder that we are live streaming as well. So camera on if and when feasible. Use the chat box at any time for comments and questions. And of course, even though we are seasoned with Zoom and other sort of a video conference, be patient. We may have some technical challenges. And of course, we will take care of that as soon as possible. And of course, if you have to leave early, please message Melinda via the chat box. And I'll also take this. I have to leave early because I have to go appear at the North Carolina Early Child Foundation's webinar, which is apropos talking about economics and childcare. So apologies, I'm gonna have to leave you all early, but I'm hoping to get all of the voting matters done. Hence, which is why we can't do all the introductions of the new people right now. So we're gonna unfortunately get right to business just because time is of the essence. But again, forgive me, some scheduling challenges. I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress. So is my schedule. So thank you so very much. You gonna take this one on, or should I, Linda? Okay, so I can go ahead quickly. Okay, so what we hope to do today for our meeting today is obviously approve our meeting notes from last time. And then really we have a jammed agenda, but really the first hour and a half or so. So feel free to be engaged, get your coffee, get your tea. So we're going to review and confirm the reimbursement rates again. So make sure we're all on the same page. We're also going to review budget requests for the 2023 and 2024 school year. We're going to review and confirm minimum salary requirements. This means that we're going to vote on these items, in particular, the ones that are confirming. And then in the latter part of the meeting, there'll be more discussion around enrollment demographics, set a process for member nominations. Hello, somebody wants to be chair, and then also share program updates as well. So we have a jammed agenda, but really want to make sure that we get to the voting items, which are the first, really the first 4 bullets to be blunt about it. Okay. So with that, we're gonna jump right into our first voting. So we hopefully you're able to, you saw Linda and team sent over the notes from November 2022. And so we'll love to go ahead and have a motion to approve the meeting notes.
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting notes.
Thank you, Sharon. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Hold on, who said that?
Joy Smith.
Joy.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. Yes, I'm still getting used to voices. So any, I should know Joy's voice by now. Any questions or comments? Just give a moment for that. Okay, so now we're gonna actually do the vote. So before we will do all the yays, but so I think we could just do all the nays, but I'm looking at Linda to make sure that's okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
any nays regarding the approval of the meeting notes? So you can either unmute or feel free to use your reaction button at the bottom right-hand corner. If you like, if there's any nays, and I'm just making sure if somebody's on the phone. I want to make sure nobody's on the phone. Okay. Okay, so with that, the meeting notes from November 2022 has been approved. Thank you, everybody. All right, Linda, now I really toss it back to you.
Okay. Really glad to be here and can't believe it's already 2023. So as Yoma mentioned, we've stacked the information for you to consider voting at the beginning of our meeting today, just so that we can try to have discussion and not run out of time before several folks have to leave. So you will recall, unless you are new to this group, that in May of 2022, you voted to increase our reimbursement rate for children by 4% to $1,300 per month per child. Now, in terms of the compensation package for Durham PreK, remember that we pay a per child rate. We also pay a separate teacher support payment. But what we're talking about right now is that per child rate that gets paid every month. You also will recall that for this year, the rest of this year, you voted to pay on allocation rather than paying on actual enrollment, which is that piece. The allocation versus enrollment is different than what NC PreK is doing for the rest of this school year. But you may have heard that North Carolina finally addressed some of the compensation issues around NC PreK and did increase the NC PreK reimbursement. The thing to bear in mind, again, especially for some of you who are new, is that our pledge to the county is that we will bring in as many dollars as possible from outside sources for our public preschool program. So we are braiding resources from a variety of funds to pay for our public preschool. And we always have this mantra where we say, Durham County money spent last. And we live by that. Now, we've been saying ever since Durham PreK started to our taxpayers, to our local officials, that it is our hope in the long run that NC PreK will have a more robust reimbursement system and will expand, making hopefully our local investments smaller to our 4-year-old public pre-K, and perhaps some of that money can then move to other early childhood needs. But of course, we're committed to having a really robust program for Durham PreK that assures that we're able to fund the high quality expectations. But at this juncture, in this fiscal year, in this school year, additional funding is coming from the state for NC PreK. Because we braid our Durham PreK seats with NC PreK, this year across the board, we don't have any standalone Durham PreK classrooms. This additional money will go is they decided to pay it retroactive. So what will happen is from the first half of the year that's already passed, our NC Pre-K providers are going to get an infusion of additional dollars. We will, moving forward, that means that we will be paying a smaller portion of the monthly reimbursement than we were previously. If you'll move to the next slide. So to give you perspective, back in May, when you decided to raise the rates by 4%, there was quite a bit of discussion about the fact that the 4% felt like it wasn't enough based on inflation. What we had said at that time was that if new dollars came into the system, we would revisit the reimbursement rate for Durham PreK. So to give you perspective of where we are right now, because of the new dollars coming in from the state for NC Pre-K and our reimbursement portion going down, that means we do have money in the budget that could accommodate a raise in the Durham Pre-K rate, if you choose to do that. Now the purpose of this chart is really to show you some perspective. So in Durham, for these rates, just to give you current pre-K rates across 5-star centers in Durham County. So this is that subsidy rate of $11.56 is the rate for a 5-star 4-year-old in Durham if a child is on a voucher in a traditional child care program. So that subsidy rate of $11.56 is what's been paid this year in Durham for subsidy. The NC Pre-K rate, the new rate that is coming to providers now, which is a new Durham rate, is $1,100 per child per month for NC Pre-K. Now, you'll recall that NC Pre-K rate in Durham is higher. That represents local investment also, Smart Start dollars, and the state is not paying $1,100 per child for NC Pre-K. That's Durham's NC Pre-K rate. The average private tuition in Durham, so you may be aware that as a child care resource and referral agency at CCSA, we maintain a database of all the regulated programs in Region 12, which is a 9-county area, of course, including Durham. And we do a lot of work to assess what is the cost of care, not the cost to offer care, but what people are charging within the community. And presently, the average private tuition for a 4-year-old in a 5-star program is $1,201 presently. The Durham Pre-K rate that you voted on last May is $1,300. You'll move to the next slide. So just to kind of, I know there's a lot of words on this page, but basically wanted to kind of give you some background. You'll recall that we are reimbursing for a 6.5-hour day. That's what the Durham Pre-K $1,300 rate is paying for. You'll also recall that we have higher requirements, higher standards are required than the North Carolina 5-star rated license, and also additional requirements above what is required for NC Pre-K. In addition, we do require that our teachers' salaries be equal to Durham Public Schools salary rates. So that is, as you know, that's a foundational requirement of Durham Pre-K. Now, thinking about our $1,300 reimbursement rate, we feel good about that rate, but we are aware that since Durham Pre-K began, when we increased the rate to $1,300, that was the first increase in the reimbursement rate. And we know, obviously, the impact of inflation has been significant on our providers. That 4% increase back in May when we met, many of our members were concerned that a 4% might not be adequate. So here's some other information just about the tuition rates in Durham. The range, there are less expensive programs. The range in Durham presently is from $680 to $1,720 per month that private childcare programs are charged for 4-year-olds in a 5-star program. But as we showed you in the previous slide, that average private tuition rate in Durham is $1,201. So the average private tuition rate is approaching our current Durham pre-K reimbursement. And obviously those typical 5-star programs in Durham that are not participating in Durham pre-K don't have the same requirements that we've imposed on the program to assure quality. And as we already said in the previous slide, the child care subsidy reimbursement for 1156, that is actually below the average private tuition that's being charged. So those are just some contextual data points for you to consider as you look at where we are presently. You can move to the next slide. So we said we would bring back to you an opportunity to talk about the rate if additional dollars became available, because we were aware that the state was working on potentially infusing more dollars into NC pre-K, which would free up some of our funds. So as you asked us to do, we're bringing this back to you for discussion and to consider whether or not you want to address the reimbursement rate. Now obviously you have options. You could choose not to do anything. You could choose to stay with what we have. You could choose to raise the rate. If so, you could raise that immediately for the rest of this fiscal year, or you could decide that you could decide on a new rate for next school year. Those, just are obviously some options. So I'm just going to open it up for discussion, and hope if you have questions, obviously we'll try to answer them.
And also see if there's any questions in the chat box, just in case.
You have a hand up.
Oh yeah, Darnella, yes, please.
I'm trying to do unmute. Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year.
Yes, same to you.
Happy New Year.
And
Good morning.
this is such a great work everyone does, and I don't want to negate it by just kind of having my presence here sparing it. So please forgive me, but I've been over here in the struggle, okay? It's been a little rough out here in these childcare streets.
Yes.
And so I really had to hunker down and kind of close in and try to recruit staff and keep the wheels turning. So thank you guys for this work. I wanted to, the providers reached out to me. I wasn't present at the last NC pre-K meeting, but I got an earful of kind of how things went awry. And you guys know I'm always want to be the peacemaker and bring things back to perspective and hear the information and kind of know a little background on the facts and how things work with the funders and different things. So I come with a different perspective. But what I like to say is that it is really, really hurting out here in terms of financing. Last year, maybe a year before last, I came and we spoke about how this was the first time I really saw my business and this industry in jeopardy for the private providers. And that's still my fear. We've gotten a lot of support, and thank you guys for advocating for us. But this thing is spiraling. It is like the cost is astronomical. And parents are really hurting, and we've been getting the support, for their fees and different things, but it's almost like I have to charge the fees to kind of have enough to, keep the quality of the program going and to attract new staff. Like to attract new staff, I'm paying them almost almost to $1 to $2 more than my existing staff. And then I'm gonna have to try to bring everybody up to where it's fair and equitable. So there's a lot of costs out here for programs, for private childcare programs. So I don't want to, not champion their cause and say, every little bit helps. I know sometimes people don't present the information in a way in which, it can be received and it's positive, and sometimes, I can't judge anybody's motives, but I am a true provider out here, have committed my life to this work, and I really know and have a pulse on what's going on out here. And I'm telling you, we could really use, and I'm not a Durham PreK provider, so I don't benefit from this in any kind of way, but they could really use this increase. I mean, if we had it to do, and it's something we could do and kind of move some other pots around, I'm really advocate for this because it's just really rough out here right now. And so that's my whole spiel on that. I want to apologize for the way it was presented lastly by, just I'm not into that type of presentation, but the reality of it is really needed out here. It really
Thank you.
is.
No, thank you, Darnell, for, it's the content and of what the providers were saying, and obviously you bring it up, I think is important. So thank you for raising that. And I think Brittany, before I go to you, I just want to go ahead and take up quickly Joy's question, and I think it's in some ways related to a little bit of what Donella was saying, which is, will the increased reimbursement rates help to increase access for families? And then our families and our community members asking for increased rates. And I think maybe I would say Darnell's comment would say at least the community members, aka the providers. But any other thoughts you can give to that, Linda, and anybody else?
Yeah. So Joy brought up a good point about what does it mean? What is the advocacy going on, and whether or not this will increase access. So, as you know, from the very beginning, we have been investing in the early childhood system across Durham, and by providing additional services and quality enhancements and that type of thing. The reality is that the rates need to support the work so that our local providers will be interested in offering public preschools. So yes, that does impact access for families by the willingness of our early childhood community to offer these services. So that's how it does impact families. But this really impacts the owners, directors, early childhood community. And I know that what Darnell is referring to is there's a lot of stress and anxiety among the directors and owners. And, it was a vocal and strong meeting with those directors. That's what she's referring to. And we definitely respect their input, and we know that they're strong advocates for their programs. I know Brittany in the chat, you were talking about that NC PreK reimbursement, and I'm going to definitely turn it over to you to talk about that.
Yeah, sorry, Brittany, please go ahead.
Oh, no worries, and I apologize for being off camera. My office looks like a demolition site right now because of some plumbing issues that happened. But to answer the question, yes, the new reimbursement rate is scheduled to kick in this month, and it will be retroactively paid. So there will be additional dollars to make up for the months of service already. And just a reminder, we are still paying on attendance versus enrollment for NC PreK. So that is also something that I just want to bring to your attention. And we are actively still recruiting children, but we have exhausted our list. So just wanted to add that for context, but we are still actively trying to recruit and fill seats. But we have gotten confirmation from the state that that payment will kick in this month.
Thank you for that, Brittany. And I think to add even to the question, Joy, that you had, right, in the end of it, providers, them being soluble, right? Being able to actually have programs, high quality, all of that, obviously that makes it in the long run accessible for families. And so whether or not they ask for it is probably like, it's good if they ask for it, but I think we don't want them to ask for it. We should already be proactive, which is really, I think, what we want to make sure that, the provider community, right, is able to stay open, provide those services, provide the programming that children and families need. So I think at the end of it, that's really the whole goal, is at least trying to keep them soluble, especially because we've been investing, at least here in Durham County, for years, right? We want to kind of make sure that we continue to invest in both the programs, the directors, and also obviously the workforce, really because we want to support children's healthy development and obviously families' own development and what they need for their child. So I would say they're really mutually related in that regard, even if they're not asking for it, in my perspective.
Right. Tosh, can you go back to the previous slide? Just the one before that, sorry. Yeah, just, I think there's so many things to unpack here. And COVID has impacted our programs so deeply, and the inflation can't be underestimated. And the shortage of workers has put pressure on the pay rates, which is way overdue. I mean, we want to have a better system in terms of paying people wages that means that they can be in early childhood career. But I think the confluence of all these things has just created so much pressure. Somebody said to me, that's a colleague in a different field, I was in a meeting and we were just talking about the wage issue and all that. And what she said to me was, what is your end goal? And obviously our end goal has always been to have the highest quality program possible. And so that's why on this slide, what we're trying to do is just give you perspective. And what I would say is the $1,300 reimbursement rate that we are presently paying, and then we also do pay a teacher support payment based on the teacher's license, how many years of experience they have. That payment is to try to make it possible for a program to hire the most qualified teacher possible, without the barrier of their salary. But that $1,300 rate, in the context of the type of service and program that's being offered, that's what it really boils down to. Our requirements for quality programming and the work that goes into our program, do we feel that our rate adequately reflects what we are expecting in terms of quality? And again, as we mentioned, the range of private childcare in Durham, just, the range is that parents are paying is from $680 to $1,720 per month. And the average in Durham for traditional childcare, not the Durham PreK requirements that we have, that average amount is approaching what we're already paying, just average private tuition at $1,201. And so I do feel, I was asked, well, what do the staff recommend? Based on all the factors, when we raised the rate 4% in May, at that time, we had a really robust conversation about how much should we raise. Given all the factors and inflation and all that, as a team, we are recommending that you consider an increase. However, obviously, there's so many factors in our community to consider, because we have said that as the state infuses additional dollars, that would free up some local dollars. What we're advocating for is to reallocate those local dollars within the program by doing an increase.
That's very helpful. Because so go back to that, because are we going to vote on that 4%? Right, we need to vote on that. Right. Oh, hold it. Dr. Stowell, go ahead, please.
Just real quickly, I wanted to hear from Linda. So if we vote to increase the rate and then we reallocate the local dollars, and I apologize if I missed that, what would we intend to do with that reallocation? Like, what would those reallocated funds go to?
Okay, so thanks for the question. So as we negotiate with the county, we get our budget allocation for the year. From our budget allocation, we just figure out how many spaces, how many seats we can plan for the following year. And what we've always said is the instructional dollars, we get an amount that the county is willing to give. It's possible in a given year we wouldn't draw down all those dollars. So what would happen now is with these new dollars from the state, if we don't increase the rate, if we do nothing, those dollars would not be drawn down from the county because we don't have authority to spend them on anything except children's seats. And so the new money from the state will mean that the county spends less this year. We've done the analysis, we do have the money presently allocated within the instructional budget to accommodate an increase. However, again, we have said for many years to the county that as new dollars come in from the state, we would spend less. And so we have to make sure we're fully transparent about how we're allocating dollars. So if we don't increase the rate, the county will spend less money this year. It won't get drawn down. Does that answer your question?
That does, thank you. And I just want to put out there, while as the highest fiscal agent for the county, I really appreciate it when we can reserve funds that have been allocated and not spend them. But I will say, and you know this, our Board of Commissioners, they are, really committed to us providing the highest quality pre-K care for the greatest number of children that we can. And so if there is a need, let's say that we don't draw down all of the money. If there are additional needs that we have where that funding could be utilized, I am certainly open to us having a discussion, identifying those needs and coming back to the commissioners to request that we could spend, the remaining allocated funds on those needs. Not that we have to. I just want to put it out there that I am certainly open to us doing that if need be.
Thank you, Dr. Sowell. Christy, Dr. Snyder, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I did, but I think Linda covered it. I was just gonna reemphasize that, the NC pre-K increases are recurring dollars that were added to the budget. So we anticipate that money would continue to be there in the future. And therefore, we would be able to continue to access that. And then the other thing was, if we do move forward to vote on this, Linda, your anticipation is this would be recurring and it would be something that we would continue to do in the future, correct?
Yes. So as I mentioned, when we get our budget for the year, we plan for as many seats as we can based on that money. So, for example, let's say that you don't increase the rate. It is true that then that means next school year, we would be able to create some additional seats because we would have unallocated dollars. However, we might not be able to if the providers feel that the reimbursement rate doesn't cover their needs. So, we're in that catch-22 where we want to maximize access for children by having as many seats as possible, but we also know that we have to be able to support the system. And I see that Darnella has her hand raised, but before we turn it to her, I want to answer real quick Joy Spencer's chat message about transportation. So she mentioned in the chat about, where we are with transportation. What I'll say is that Dr. Sowell mentioned other needs. There are definitely needs that we have identified and are aware of. Transportation is one thing that's a very complex issue, but it is a need that's been identified by parents and is something that we have been studying, but we do not have a readiness level to offer as yet. We've been in communication with the public schools around how they're handling transportation, different options. We are in a community of practice with other public pre-K providers across the state, and the transportation issue is on that agenda almost every meeting also. It is a huge problem for parents and it is an issue. However, it is quite costly, and we don't have the money presently, and we don't have a plan presently to address transportation, but it is something we're studying and working on. There are certainly other needs too. I mean, obviously, we've had requests for nursing assistance, additional health, social, emotional supports. There are other needs. And as Dr. Sowell mentioned, we could review those needs, and we could make a request to the county to take our existing dollars in a different direction. As I mentioned, the thing we have the authority to do right now within our budget is to consider that extra money to be spent toward those seats. If we want to take that money and ask permission to spend it differently, that would be a different process. But the rate issue is the thing that's within our purview for you to decide at this point.
And before
no.
Janella, oh, sorry, we don't.
I'm done.
And I was just gonna just before Janella, you go, I was gonna just remind us, obviously, depend on if funds are available later on, is that obviously will encourage us to look at our charge, but also our priorities that we established a while ago. So I think as we make any decisions, we want to kind of go back and look at, okay, have we met some of our benchmarks that we sort of talked about maybe a couple of years ago, or maybe a year ago. So just to be on the same page. Go ahead, Janella.
Thank you guys for the opportunity to continue to speak to this issue. A couple of things I want to kind of preface as well. DPK, the rate and the expectations that are put on the private providers to carry out this program, it really is it takes more money, and it causes more stress to be able to carry out the DPK program. That's kind of one of the reasons why I really wasn't a huge proponent to participate. I'm just saying that myself, and I've been in the field 30 years, okay? So, you wanna, and how many seats now do you guys have? Are all the DPK seats filled? Because I don't know that, I haven't been connected. All the seats filled now.
Right now, presently, we're at around 89% enrollment.
Okay, so
it goes up and down.
Okay, so to add additional seats, then we haven't filled all of our current seats, might not be a good roadway to the future. And we're also having a difficulty filling the NC pre-K seats as well. Parents they're just not really, they're still not fully bringing their children back into care. Especially some of the higher middle income families, they're choosing other options, relatives and different things like that. So to say this money could be used for additional seats, I'm not sure that'll be best used as well anyway, because we're currently not filling our seat allocation now for both NC pre-K and Durham pre-K. Transportation, I've been doing transportation the whole time I've been in business, and it's something that I committed to doing at the onset of my business because I knew it was a need for families, but it's not something that providers readily take on. It is a huge liability, huge. And it's a whole, like, I spend out of my job duties, I probably spend a fourth of my time just managing that, the liability and the issues that can happen around transportation is something that you have to be really, really on it, because it could be something drastic that could happen that, that's, you would think it would be routine, but things could really go left really fast. So people are not embracing, providers are not embracing transportation. They haven't. I've done it because I felt like it was so important to me and to the population that I served that they be able to access quality childcare. And it's proven to be a very good business strategy for me. But I have spent a number of years and a large amount of my time invested into that system that it works. I mean, we still have to tweak it almost every day. And with the cost of gas, it is, had not I been in this place financially in my career, I probably would not be able to provide. But because I've been diligent with what I've had for the last what, 15 years I've been in my private business, 15, 16 years, I wouldn't be able to provide it now because it costs so much. It just costs so much.
Thank you.
So I just want to preface all our discussion and make sure that we are really honing in on the issues and you guys get a really a grassroots conversation of what's really going on out there so we can really make some good decisions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Darnell. I appreciate that. Really all of the comments and I think and questions and I think these are just really important so that as we make our decision, we know sort of some of the ramifications and the implications. So just thank you all for your good thinking. So with that said, do we want to go ahead and have a motion for increasing the DPK rate by 4% to $13.50 per child per month?
I make the motion to increase the DPK rate by 4% to $13.50 per child per month.
Thank you, Darnella. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Hold on, who said that? Sorry, maybe.
Sharon.
Thank you, Sharon. Make sure it's on record here. Linda,
So
we're gonna,
Yama, we have some, I was just gonna say, we have some folks who have to abstain from the vote. That would include any current Durham PreK providers, which would be June and Derek. So just wanted to put that on the record.
perfect, thank you. All right, any other questions or comments regarding, we already had a first and a second for this motion. Any comments or questions before we take a full vote of those who are able to vote on this? Yes, go ahead.
It's Christy. Are we, I want to make sure, are we saying from now to the end of the year? I just think that needs to be clear, the motion, or is it retroactive, just to make sure we're all clear?
Oh, that's no, great question, Dr. Snag. So I think, this will, so Linda, just confirm, my thinking is that this will retroactive and then continue which one is it?
Well, we calculated moving forward. We did not calculate retroactively because we had already done an increase and they're already getting a retroactive increase from NC PreK. So we calculated moving forward and we calculated both. We considered whether it would be a temporary measure or a permanent measure, and it could be either. You would be setting your rate for next school year, or you could choose to revisit the rate for next school year again once we have a new budget. But we just need, it would be helpful to clarify the length of time if this is a moving forward and permanent. It would be very difficult for us to retroactively.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
And I'm not, that's not what I had in mind. The motion is to move forward from this point, and maybe we can revisit it again when you guys get the new budget about going forward. But for right now,
So this is for 1 year. Okay, this is for this year. Okay, so let's go back then. And so Darnella, you're saying that your motion is to increase the DPK rate by 4% to $13.50 per child per month. And then we'll revisit it during the next funding cycle. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Cycle. Okay.
I think that's fair.
Okay. All right. So and then Sharon, you had second, and do you still second that, or do you want to
I do. I'll still second it.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay. Any other comments, right? Particularly, again, remembering that it's for this current period and to be revisited at least next time for the next funding cycle.
This is Xavier. I just have one question based on those clarifications. I just want to make sure from staff that because we meet quarterly, there will be time to revisit in a way that we can reflect the actual budget. Is that the case?
Thanks for asking that, Xavier. What we would need to do in order to plan and communicate with providers and enter into contract and that kind of thing, we would at our May, so we have a March meeting and a May meeting for the rest of this year, the school term. We would need in May, at the latest, we would need to confirm our 23-24 school year rate. So for sure, if this vote is just for the rest of this school year, we would need to confirm next year's rate no later than the May.
Does that answer your question, Xavier? And I think that's a really good question. And we have had to do some of this before. And if we need to potentially have an ad hoc meeting because something happened, we definitely always entertain that as well. And if
Yes,
there are particular
that's
things
good.
that, okay, good. And if there are particular things that people want to see, it'd be great to also flow that up to us early so we can at least, so Linda really and team can pull together whatever data that we may want to look at so that we can make the best decision in terms of whether to keep that rate or to go back to what it was. So just let us know if there's any additional data you may want to look at, but yes.
And I know this has nothing to do with the vote, but as we get towards that process, I like to really kind of find a way to kind of have some good, healthy dialogue and just some transparency. I'm just the narrative. I'm just kind of, warm with it. We got to do better in our communication and our interaction around these issues. We got to decide them, but we got to just do better. So I'm open to investing some of my time. I know business all got to get out, but I am open to investing some of my time to have some good, healthy conversations about, prior to getting here, what's the best route, just for the community. I want to see that community relationship be built up stronger and more productive.
Yeah, and and again, I think, anything with money is always sometimes hard, but I think we continue to have really robust conversations and thoughts and perspective and try to at least come to, where we're doing best for this program. And so I really appreciate your comments, Donnell, and obviously many others. Okay. I don't want to shortchange any other comments or thoughts, but so we have already got it second, and obviously first, but a second. And so unless there's no other comments, I'd like to go ahead and really ask for a vote of really nay. If there's a nay for increasing the DPK rate by 4% to $13.50 per child per month for this funding cycle to be revisited in the next funding cycle. Are there any nays for those who are able to vote? Okay, with that, it looks like the motion has passed. Thank you all.
Okay, so for the record, I just want to, we're live streaming and we also record, and of course we do the notes. So for the record, that would mean that the increase of the Durham PreK rate by 4% to $13.50 per child per month passed unanimously by voting members.
That is correct. Thank you,
Thanks.
Linda.
Okay,
Thank you all.
so let's thank you very much, and we will obviously be revisiting this as we move forward on a regular basis. Let's move to the next slide. This next slide is just an overview to remind you of where we are. So the current budget, because we want to always have it in front of you to understand how we're operating, the difference. We have an overall budget, but it's divided into two categories. The one you've been addressing today is the instructional services budget. And the reason I wanted to be sure that we mention this is that in our communication with providers, several of them didn't have an understanding, and it lifted up to me that we always want to be as clear as possible. The way this works, the instructional services budget, we don't just spend money out of that budget. Obviously, that is up to our rate reimbursement. It's up to what is guided by this group. And we don't draw that money down until it's spent. So it's not sitting in the bank account. It's HISA. We send a monthly invoice to the county and we report to them every single month. So several people asked me about accountability, and not from this group, but in the provider community, they were asking about accountability. And I want to be really clear that we meet with the county every month. We provide written and discussion. We provide written reports as well as discussion every month. And we are drawing down those dollars once they have been spent. Once a child has been served, then we are reimbursed. So that's the instructional service. For everything else, all of the, the online portal for registration, all of the work to manage, pay for, our contract with partners, subcontracting, all of that, that comes out of what we call the management budget. And that's the secondary component. And that covers a lot of different things, which I'm happy to explain more, in over time in the future, but I just wanted to kind of remind you where we are. Next slide. So just wanted, to mention to you where we are right now in the budgeting process. It's, launched. The budgeting process launches with the county. And what we have initially requested from the county is a 4% increase. It's very preliminary at this point. We don't, we don't have a lot of information yet. But in our March meeting, coming up in our March meeting, we will really take a deep dive into all of this. But I wanted to let you know where we are right now, those priorities based on what you previously set, the priority to add seats to increase access for 4-year-olds, the priority to fund the equity plan, Durham PreK equity plan components, and also to provide easy and family-friendly access. One of our big expenses is the online platform for families to enroll that's universally used by all the partners and all the public seats. So just wanted to make sure you're aware of where we are with our request for funding for next year. Okay, so we wanted to talk with you about teacher credentials. We're going to talk about this related to the potential request for a vote down a little bit later in our meeting. So I'm going to turn it over to Joy Turner on our team, who's our data guru, and I'm going to ask her to review some of the teacher credentials.
Thanks, Linda. So we currently have 39 lead teachers in Durham PreK classrooms and 37 teacher assistants. And we're going to start by looking at the lead teachers. So this chart shows the lead teachers by their license type. Teachers for Durham PreK have to have either a BK license or be actively working towards earning one. And you can see currently 9 teachers do not have a license but are working towards one. 8 have an emergency or a residency license, which means that's an alternative pathway to a full BK license. They've met some requirements and are continuing to work towards their full license. And a little more than half have their full BK license, either an initial or a continuing license. So you can go to the next slide. This chart breaks down the teachers who have a license. So that could be emergency, residency, initial, or continuing by the numbers of years of experience that's listed on their license. So while the majority of our teachers are fully licensed, you can see that the number of years of experience that they have trend a little bit lower. About a third have less than 5 years of experience, and only about 20% have 15 or more years of experience. The little chart on the right-hand side shows the salary range, the annual salary range for our lead teachers. The $37,000 is the minimum required salary for a non-licensed teacher. That's based on the 0 years of experience on the DPI scale. And then for teachers who do have a license, they must be paid according to the years of experience listed on their license on the DPS scale, which is a little bit higher. So you can see the median and the maximum salary for our teachers on the right hand
Hey,
side.
Joy, can I hop in for 1 second? Because I know we have some new folks. Just want to clarify that DPI is the Department of Public Instruction, North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, and they guide for the school systems all matters of salary and that kind of thing. So the DPI scale that we're using is when, someone doesn't have their license. Once they get that license, then we transition them to the Durham Public School, the full Durham Public School scale, which includes the local supplement for teachers.
Thanks, thanks, Linda. You can go to the next slide. So as I mentioned, we have 39 teachers. this year. That covers 604 seats. And here's a little comparison to where we were last year. So this is an increase in the number of teachers and the number of seats as compared to last year, but it still breaks down to the same ratio of 1 teacher per every 15 seats. We have seen this year a slight drop in the percentage of teachers who are currently eligible for the teacher supplement. So the teacher supplement is the additional payment that Linda was talking about earlier that we pay directly to providers who have teachers who have either that initial or the continuing license and must be paid on the Durham Public Schools scale. So that scale goes up as their years of experience go up, and we didn't want that to be a barrier for providers to hire highly qualified teachers, knowing that they would need to pay them more. And so as a teacher increases in years of experience, our payment goes up as well. So to help offset that cost and make it more manageable for providers to hire teachers with more experience. So currently, just over half of the teachers are currently eligible and the providers are receiving those supplements. We have seen a slight decrease in the average years of experience. So for those eligible teachers, they have an average of 10 years of experience versus 11 last year. And the average monthly supplement cost is $1,026. And then the projected spending for the whole year is there. And so you may wonder, why is the average gone up and the total gone up when the average years of experience has gone down? But that is because the state increased the teacher salary scale this year, which increased teacher salaries by 3 to 6%, depending on the number of years of experience. And it actually gave higher increases to teachers with fewer years of experience. That's just how the state raises worked this year. And so our supplement rate is based on a formula that is based on the salary. So as the salary goes up through these state increases, our payment goes up as well to help offset those increases. So that's why you do see that increase, even though the number of years of experience has gone down. You can go to the next slide. So now we're going to look at just the demographics and the salary requirements. So this chart does include both lead teachers and instructional assistants, and their breakdown by race. You can see very predominantly African-American at 80%. And we don't see a huge difference between lead teachers and instructional assistants if you separate them out. So that's why they're just combined here in this graph. And on the next slide, only 5% of our teachers and assistants identify as Hispanic or Latinx, but 12% do speak an additional language. Those languages include Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, and some others. Those are the most common ones that are spoken in addition to English. So our current, I already talked about the minimum salary for lead teachers at an annual rate. This is how it's broken down at an hourly rate. Our current minimum for assistants is $15 per hour, and you can see the range. So, and I will mention, we do monitor the pay for teachers and assistants quarterly to make sure that providers are meeting our requirements. And so these pay rates are based on actual pay that we have confirmed from teacher pay stubs and other documentation from the provider. Sometimes providers do pay above our minimum, and that is included in this. We're not just measuring what they should be paid, but what they are actually paid. And so you can see that the median hourly salary is $17.18 for assistants, with a maximum of $23 per hour. And on this graph to this little text box to the side, you can see the Durham living wage for 2023 is actually $17.60 per hour, although our minimum is still set at $15 per hour. The next chart just kind of shows the same information, just in a more visual way, that shows the lead teacher and the teacher assistant minimum, median, and maximum rates, both annually and hourly. I know some people are more familiar with annual rates. Some people are more familiar with hourly. So this kind of provides you both. You can see that there's a much wider variation in the pay rates for teachers, which kind of makes sense because of that Durham Public Schools pay scale that they are on. Then there's a much smaller range for teachers' assistants, but the median does hover right below the living wage in Durham of $17.60. And you can see there's just not as much range for them.
Okay, thanks, Joy. So our purpose in reviewing this, as we do every year, you've asked us to inform you, keep you informed about how our programs work and how things are operating. I see in the chat that Sharon was asking, does Durham Public Schools have a commitment to pay the living wage? I'm actually not sure. I don't know if Dr. Hardy's
Dr. Hardy's,
on.
yeah, Dr. Hardy. Yes, she's on. Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Hardy, please.
Good morning. Happy New Year. We are in budget development right now. So the first iteration of our superintendent's budget recommendation will be coming at the January board meeting.
Okay. Thanks for that information.
Thank you.
So those of you who have been
Hold on
with,
hold on a second, Linda. I see Dr. Solo's hand is up, so I assume it's related.
yeah, go for it.
Thanks so much. Just real quickly, want to state that it's another priority for our board for the DPS employees as well as county employees to be paid the living wage. And so I will go as far as to saying that should also apply to DPK as well.
Thank you, Dr. Wall. And I see Christy, Dr. Snug's question about requirements for teaching assistants. Can you remind us of that?
Yes. So this current year, we follow the NC PreK guidelines for teacher assistants. And this year, NC PreK did change some of their requirements. And I'm blanking on what those were. Team, can you help me?
Yes. So,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead, Christy. You can go
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead, Monty. You can do it.
Oh, I was going to say they do allow a CDA for teacher assistants, but for Durham PreK, we require an AA degree at a minimum, and or be working towards. Just like we have some lead teachers who don't have their license, but they're allotted time to work towards getting their license. The same thing with our teacher assistants. They're required to have an AA degree. And if they don't have that yet, then be working towards that.
And just as a follow-up, Monty, does that mean that we are verifying that they are continuing to work and completing those 6 hours just like NC PreK?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, we do
Okay.
verify
All right.
that they are in school, and we try to connect them to resources like Teach, so they have scholarships that help cover cost of going.
Perfect. That's what I thought. I just wanted to verify because that also impacts, I think, the conversation, Linda, that you're having around rates. So thank you.
I agree. And do you also see the question from Kate about our lead teachers?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
So in our Durham PreK plan, we require pay parity with Durham Public Schools for our lead teachers. We don't for instructional assistants. The Durham PreK requirement is actually higher than what Durham Public School presently has. So this group governance set a minimum of $15 an hour in the first year of our program development. We started Durham PreK with no minimum required pay for instructional assistants. Mid-year in the first year, you decided to set that minimum at $15, and you asked us to monitor and see where we were. So we do monitor, and as Joy mentioned, the many of our instructional assistants are paid above the 15 by the market, by by that market. So our minimum is 15, but our range in those positions in Durham Pre-K is between $15 and $23 is the top of the currently employed instructional assistants, that range. Our median right now is that 17, 18. So we know that tells us that the market is demanding that people make, more than the 15. However, we know that by setting our rates, we're making a statement. And so we know, and we also were aware that the county had moved since Durham Pre-K started in the last couple of years, the county has moved to the living wage amount as their standard. And so that's why we wanted to bring it back to you.
Thank you.
Just for more context, 60% of current teacher assistants are paid $17 per hour or more.
Right. I think that for us, if we're going to change it, it is helpful if we're going to. It's helpful for us to be able to let people know for next school year that this is going to be the new minimum. We're asking you to consider for next school year because we don't think that it's reasonable to ask providers to change their minimum for instructional assistants in the middle of the budget year. Many of them are already above the 15, but we want to give them notice about a change for next year. And in particular, this will financially impact Durham Public Schools because their rates are different, as well as that 40% of the instructional assistants who are presently making below that amount. So.
And Linda, I realized I said CDA and I didn't clarify what the CDA was. The CDA is a credential. It's the child development credential that's offered.
Yeah, and Monty, I would just add it is a national credential that's portable across states. And so that is actually a step up for NC Pre-K because previously public schools had been grandfathered in that they could have 2 years of teaching experience without any type of education in order to be a teacher assistant. And that was why that was raised. It also brings the state in line with the NEAR recommendations of what quality education level should be in a pre-K program.
Yeah. And that was one of the areas where Durham Pre-K has always had in the past, has always had a higher expectation for those instructional assistants than what NC Pre-K has. And since some of you are new, I'll share with you that the way Durham Pre-K works, if you set a policy that's higher or lower, but that hasn't happened, that's higher than NC Pre-K, then we go by that policy. But in the absence of a policy, let's say we haven't addressed something, then we follow all the NC Pre-K requirements.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So in essence, Linda, you're asking for a vote to set a new minimum pay rate for instructional assistants beginning in the school year 2023-2024. Again, based on the data that, of course, a lot of the providers are already paying above that, but obviously want to just make a statement, also make it clear that livable wage is really important to make sure that all of our educators are being at least paid as fairly as possible. So I'd like to open this up for questions and comments, right? Again, and feel free to go through the slides if needed, but any comments or questions regarding this new consideration of setting a minimum pay rate for instructional assistants beginning in 2023 school year?
I'd like to comment, not sure if I've got something funky going on with my phone. I've moved from my desktop to my phone. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can hear you, Darnella. Yes.
Okay, great. Yes. If we definitely have to revisit the budget if this is going to, and I'm not opposed to doing it because like I said, I've already had to raise my pay rates to recruit new talent and to support my existing teachers. So I'm not against it. But we're definitely gonna have to revisit the rates if you are gonna require that we do that. So I just want to add that that's just another added cost that's going to be for the providers, that we want to make sure we're able to do that and continue the program and operate at the pay rate and the level that we need to. So yes, please
Darnella,
consider.
can I ask you, Darnella, especially when I go back to the other conversation we just had earlier. So maybe my question is, by raising it to at least the livable wage for Durham County, do you see that helping you with the recruitment and the retention of the workforce, especially on the instructional assistant side of things? I'm just curious about that.
Really don't, because I'm trying to do that myself over here on a personal level. Like last week, I hired 5 teachers. Only 2 actually came and are working. So, and I'm able to pay them a higher rate. Well, actually 3. One of them hadn't started. I'm able to pay them a higher rate because I do some of the other programs, the early Head Start programs and the NC pre-K programs. But I've had only 3 staff out of 5 that I hired that was qualified, that could meet the credentials, that had the education, and I gave them a higher than above rate than my existing staff, and still they're not they're not following through. This workforce is just a different type of workforce now. They're come for the interview, they're signed the offer letter, and they won't show up. They'll come for the training, they'll do the training, and they won't show up. They're leaving for 50 cents more here, $1 more here. It's like a bidding war out here for staff. So I don't know if it's a good standard, and I want folks to have a livable good wage. I want folks to come to work with me. I want them to be able to work one job if it's possible and be able to take care of their families and live well. And the livable wage is a means to that end, but I don't know if it'll really move the needle that much just because of the climate we're in.
Okay, thank you for that. And I do see sort of the questions from both Kathy and Kate, which are related about sort of the overall sort of benefits around our compensation health insurance and any sort of leave policies that may exist for NC pre-K and obviously for DPK as well. So any thoughts about that, Linda, Monty, Joy, others?
Yeah, so of course, the public schools have a very robust compensation package when it comes to health insurance and leave and other benefits. So the way that NC pre-K presents, they strongly encourage programs to offer leave, to provide, access to health insurance, compensation to help support it, but that it's not required, it's encouraged. For Durham pre-K, we also strongly encourage all providers to have a robust compensation package. However, it is not required, and we've done some work to unpack that, and we're happy to do a report out to you in March of some of that information that we gathered in real time about the benefits of that our current teachers and instructional assistants are receiving. We'll put that on the agenda to report out to you in March. But when we talk about our required wage, we do have to remember that even though for teachers, for example, we're requiring they be paid on the Durham Public School scale, their overall compensation package is not matching the public school compensation package because they're not accessing the retirement and the health benefits and that kind of thing. I think it's, the hourly rate is the only thing we're talking about.
On the site, just tell them.
And as far as NC pre-K paid leave and that kind of thing, Kate, we'll be happy to report out in more depth about the actual what's required versus what is encouraged. And if you don't want to wait till March, we're happy to send you some information in writing.
Right. I think June and then Christy. Dr. Smith.
Yeah, I just want to say that here at Yates, to try and encourage staff to sign up with us, not just in the pre-K classroom, but throughout the center, we have changed our salary structure. And so we've gone, I don't mind tell you all this, we've gone from our base of 17 to 22, which is a lot for us. And I'm honestly not, so I think it is making some kind of a difference to whether we can hire staff, but I don't know whether it's making a substantial difference, because as Darnella was saying, you know, when you try and hire somebody, for a start, they don't show up to interviews, they don't respond to phone calls, they don't answer emails, and sometimes they'll show up and you go through the whole process and then they don't show up on the first day. I don't know why it's like this, but it is like this right now. And in terms of benefits, unfortunately, most private programs can't provide the kind of benefits that DPS provides, and that's just the way it is. And what staff are telling me is not that they don't want medical insurance, but what they're really interested in is their pay packet. Yes, it's great to have benefits and we provide them here, but we can't provide something that's similar to what the public schools provide. And to a certain extent, they'd rather have the hourly wage than they'd have a benefit package. In the long run, that's not good, because we all know we all need retirement and life insurance and medical care and all the rest of it. But unfortunately, private programs just don't have this kind of money. So yeah, I don't know what the end result is. I think the more we can pay people, surely the more they would want to work. But when I know what big corporations are paying their workers, you know, in the tech industry, and you know, I mean, if you're a high-powered, you know, doctor in the medical profession, if you're a high-powered attorney, and here we are, when we offer our teachers pay raises, you know, we're lucky to give them $1 an hour raise, and it seems like so minimal, you know, and really we're not paying our staff a living wage. And this is why I'm afraid that people are not entering this profession and choosing not to stay in the profession, because it simply doesn't pay enough. And it also doesn't have sufficient respect, unfortunately. Although we're here to provide something that's a hugely important service to families, and how can they go to work if we don't provide this service? It's not seen as, well, during the pandemic, it started to be seen as being an essential thing. I think even that's sort of drifting away a little bit again now. Anyway, so I don't know whether I'm saying anything that's helpful. I do think if we can pay people more, it's got to help. It's got to help.
No, that was very helpful, June. I think there's a lot of great pieces you put in there. Dr. Snipes, do you have a comment related? I think you do.
Yeah, very quickly. I just wanted to remind folks too that even Linda, I appreciate you saying you would bring some information back, but I think, you know, as June just shared, it's very unlikely that many of our private childcare facilities can even, they don't usually offer health insurance or any type of paid leave or benefits. Luckily, over the last couple of years with stabilization grants, more have been able to offer some of those things, even toward retirement. But it is still very limited. So I, like June, think that any type of payment increase is always a benefit. And when we're talking about parity, Linda, it's extremely important for, as you mentioned, that we're talking only about pay when we're looking at the package with the public schools, because it's not even the same work schedule many times for private sites, because many of those 4-year-old teachers get pulled in to teach other classes during the summer months as well. So just wanted to mention that as well. And then the only other thing I would say is that we also, I would agree with June, that many of the new staff that you're trying to recruit, we see it within our agency. We have a pretty good benefit package, but many of the folks, I see it in my own children who are out getting their first jobs. They're more worried about the pay than they are what the benefits are, because they're not thinking long term of what they might need. So just a couple of comments to think about.
No, thank you for that, Dr. Snaggs. I think in the end of it, I'm in hearing both. Obviously, Dr. Snaggs, just in terms of like there's there's things that are possible, things that are not possible, particularly for private providers. But it's also from both Darnella and Juice's point, right? Like it may not stop the bleeding, but it sure could be helpful. At least that's at least that's my high level take home note that I'm gathering. Any other comments? And I do see, Jamaica, your comment about most of our NC pre-K sites offer some paid leave and holidays. Thank you for that. Any other comments before we take a vote for this? Okay, so with that, I'd like to ask, oh, go ahead, Jamaica.
My apologies, Yoma, Dr.
No, you're good, Yoma. Nope, you're good, Yoma.
But I just wanted to make sure that I highlight the part about lead teachers for the offer of paid leave and holidays. Every single year I have many phone calls from many of the assistant teachers or IA, the instructional assistants with regard to not getting those paid benefits for leave and holidays and things like that, and them having to still work during breaks and things so that they do not, so their paychecks are not shorted. And so I just want to make sure that, everybody is aware that that is a piece that, we do need to work on in the future.
No, I agree completely. I think we all would agree with that. Okay, do we have a motion to set a new minimum pay rate for instructional assistants for school year 23 to 24?
So move.
Thank you, Dr. Solo. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I appreciate that. Any questions or comments before we take a vote?
So my only comment would be that by this motion, are you empowering us to set that rate? I think what we would like to know is what rate are you comfortable with?
Was it the 17? I thought you had $17.
Well, we know that the county is requiring the living wage, so we did suggest that, but it's up to you. And if it could be named in the motion, that would be helpful.
Help.
Yeah.
Dr. Sowell,
I would move to set the rate at the $17.60.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sowell, for making that
Hey,
amendment.
May I comment on that as to the rate? Can it be tied in somehow with the reimbursement rate for the upcoming school year? If we're going to do this for 23-24 school year, we need to somehow tie it to the reimbursement rate, because this is going to be an additional cost. I don't want to just say, let's go do this, which I'm in favor of, but we still got to address the compensation, the rate piece to support this. So is there amended? Can we do an amendment? Yes.
I don't, well, that's not, so Linda, if you want to respond to that. So obviously our first vote was around the rate moving forward, the 4% increase. And then this was for the instructional assistants. And my understanding is that a majority of them already paid more than that. But Linda, I think we don't want to sort of conflate. I think we can't bring up another funding pool when we're trying to talk about this. So I do think your point about making sure that how this looks. And so I wonder if this is more of, let's figure out how it impacts the providers afterwards, right? To kind of get a bigger sense of it. That's what I would recommend. But Linda, others.
Yeah, the previous discussion, you directed us to bring the rate for next year back to you. Yes. And I think that, we could do some analysis, but I think our concern is that we want to have the most time possible, since we're proposing a minimum rate for instructional assistants that's different. We want to have the most time possible to make the community aware of what's required in the new school year for Durham PreK.
Okay. All right. Just as long as there was some conversation as to how the two would marry, And we didn't make that final decision for the 23-24 school year. I just wanted that noted somewhere. Thank you.
Okay, I need to hop off, but before I do, I could probably do 30 seconds if we want to go ahead, unless there's any other comments. I don't want to cut off any comments. If there's any comments or questions, I'll have Linda take over. If not, we can do the final vote for this one now. I'll give it a second. Okay, so we have the motion to move forward with this new minimum at $17.60. So if we can go ahead and take a vote of all eligible voting members, with those who do not approve it. So the nays, if there's any nays, please either raise your hand so we can see you. Just looking. Give it a second for people to vote if they have that. Okay, Linda, so it looks like the motion passed to set a new minimum pay rate for instructional assistants for school year 2023 to 2024 at $17.60. Is that correct? Thank you. Okay, so the motion has passed. So with that, I'm sorry to leave you, and I will hand the baton over to Linda, and I wish you all a wonderful, wonderful week, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate you. So we'll move to the next slide, and we're at our break. So we're a little bit over time, but obviously you've been running a marathon here this morning, so we want to give you a break. It's 11:56. Let's reconvene at it's 10:56. Let's reconvene at 11:01. Take your break, and we'll move to more informational topics in our agenda. We don't have any additional proposed votes. So I know a few people have to leave, and we appreciate you being here. Thanks. Okay, Tosh, can you move us to the next slide? Hey, welcome back, everybody. So we knew we had a really tight agenda, and so we will make adjustments, and we planned it that way for the second half of our meeting, knowing that we would likely be short of time. So again, you have the slide deck. It was sent to you. It's also on the member portal. So you can look at that at your leisure. If we breeze through something that you're uncomfortable that we didn't spend time on, please feel free to follow up. We always are always welcome to talk to you about any questions you might have. But what we'll do is we'll spend some time on our current enrollment demographics. And then where we will shorten our time is we will rely on you to review the program update you were sent. We might hit a couple of those highlights, but we're going to go through our demographics. We're going to talk about our community convening, and then we need to talk briefly about our governance membership. But we'll keep our eye on the time because we want to end on time at 11:30, as we always promise you. So appreciate you being back and sticking with us with such a jammed agenda. So we typically in January is when we want to be able to report to you about the overall enrollment. Now you'll recall, those of you who've been with us, you'll recall that we always try to report on our local seats, who's being served. We have an overall community goal to serve, a long-term goal to serve 75% of the 4-year-old census. That's the goal we're working toward as a community. But we're going to report to you today on enrollment in locally funded seats, Durham PreK seats, as well as NC PreK seats. The information we're going to run over this morning does not include the demographic information for Durham Public Schools and Head Start. We will report out on the whole at our March meeting. We have been getting data from our partners, and we will consolidate that because we are committed to reporting on our local investment as well as our commitment universally to our braided system. So our 75% of the census goal is across all publicly supported programs, inclusive of the local Durham PreK dollars, the state NC PreK dollars, the seats that are created through Title I funds and the Head Start funds, as well as children being served through exceptional children's funds in Durham Public Schools. So we will report out to you on the whole in our next meeting. But these demographics are children in NC PreK and Durham PreK who are presently enrolled. So just, you know, it's very straightforward. We always are concerned about, are we serving families who are economically needy? And you have set a priority that even though the local dollars can serve any child, the priority is always to make sure that we are prioritizing those families who have economic challenges in our seat placement. So presently, you can see from here that 67% of our families are making below 200% of federal poverty. And that's really significant. Tasha, if you'll move to the next slide, I'll give you a little context. So what does that mean? If you don't live in this world and do this every day, maybe you're thinking to yourself, well, I know 200% federal poverty is limiting. I know, but this just gives you an idea of what the federal poverty levels are based on the 2022 guidelines. And so when we say that 67% of our families are making below 200% of federal poverty, you can see that that is a significant financial challenge for that family. You know, we did provide you with the current median income in Durham County in terms of overall. You know, when we think about for a family of four, the median is $99,814, but 67% of the families we're serving, if they're a family of four, they're making less than $55,500 a year. And so I think that's just important contextual information as we are looking at the broad overall services. Next slide. Okay. So the reason that we have pulled out a different chart for the 100% local funded seats, okay, is that you have said, yes, we're creating this program and we're using local dollars to have maximum flexibility. We have a universal access goal that's not limited by income. But you have said to us, you need to prioritize the most needy families. Bearing in mind that the local dollars are the only dollars that have no restrictions. So invariably, we're going to be serving some of the higher income children with local dollars. So for your context to pull it out, this chart shows you the income of families who are enrolled in seats that are being paid 100% with those local dollars. And you can see from the chart that we are honoring your prioritization of families who are economically challenged. So before we move to another slide, I want to just make sure there's not any questions about that. And again, you have this to review. Sometimes these kind of things take a little time to digest. So feel free to follow up with any other questions. Okay, so just for perspective, I didn't see any questions. So for perspective on, our salary information, when you think about those families, so 12% of our families, if you're a family of four and you're making 100% of federal poverty, that's $27,750 a year of income, okay, at that 100% level. We have 12% of our families who are making less than 100% of federal poverty level. So I think that's pretty significant. But when you think about income, we think about the fact that a first-year teacher doesn't come anywhere near, if they happen to be a single income family, they don't come anywhere near the Durham County median. And when we think about the perspective on what folks are making, we know that we have a universal goal, but we have prioritized economic need as one of our big priorities. Okay, next slide. So we also have always reported to you out on the racial breakdown of our enrolled children. And again, these are children who are in Durham PreK seats and NC PreK seats. So this is not inclusive of the Durham Public School information on preschool children and the Head Start information, but we believe that it would be consistent. But our enrollment presently is reflected here by race. And the next slide. So just for context, you know, you guys, those of you who know me well know I'm always talking about, well, what's the context? But what this really shows you is that we really are trying to make sure that our program is mirroring our community. We're really committed to trying to do that, but we want to show where we are with that. So this compares the Durham community demographics with the demographics of our enrolled children, just as a point of contextual information for you. Next slide. And then many of you have expressed concern about how deeply we are accessing children for whom English may not be their first language, or English may not be the main language spoken in the home, possibly. But, you know, we don't want to stereotype, because many of our families who identify as Hispanic or Latinx, many of them are fully fluent in English. So we're not making assumptions. We're just reporting out, as you've asked us to, around ethnicity. I think that, you know, we are constantly looking for strategies and ways to support families for whom English may not be their first language, and those children to be sure that they're ready, you know, obviously ready for kindergarten. Next slide. Oops, that's our next topic. So before we move to our next topic, if you'll go back, Josh, to the previous slide. Any questions before we move on from our demographics? So Jamaica's asking about if there's any desired action steps for the demographics. I think that our teams, as many of you can imagine, we are always looking for really strong, really robust outreach strategies. You know, marketing, outreach deep into all of our sub-communities within Durham. And it is our goal, absolute goal, to assure that we are making all of the communities within Durham aware of the opportunity for public preschool. I think, you know, we have not set targets around enrollment by race or ethnicity. We are just reporting out the demographics. What we have set as a goal is around income. I think, you know, I don't know how folks want to consider it, but I think that our absolute priority is to really make sure that all families are aware of the opportunity and that we are enrolling in a diverse way. Anybody have any thoughts or input around that issue or other questions? Jamaica?
Is it possible for the next report out of this information to also look at the Durham PreK dollars that are going towards enhanced seats and how that is impacting some of the demographics as well? Because I do think that, you know, the Durham PreK only seats those demographics are very important in terms of the enrollment numbers. But
Right.
I do also think that the impact of the Durham Pre-K dollars on the enhanced seats. And when I say enhanced seats, for those of you who are new, I mean the NC Pre-K, Head Start, or Title I seats that are enhanced with additional Durham Pre-K dollars also impact these numbers. And so I'm just wondering if there's a possibility of doing that.
Right. Well, what we can do is we can work with our partners to get their demographic information. So, Tasha, if you'll go back, I think 3 slides. Yeah, one more. Yeah. So here we're reporting about those local funds, but if you'll go back to slide number, I think it's one more back. Okay, that's poverty. I apologize. Go forward to go back to the race of all of the NC Pre-K and okay. Joy, can you help me by telling Tosh what slide number I'm talking about?
Sure. It's 29,
29?
I think is what the race
Yeah.
for one more back. No, one more. That one.
Thank you. Sorry. We have so many slides, they run together. Okay, so what we can do, I mean, this represents all enrollment in NC Pre-K seats that are NC Pre-K and Durham Pre-K seats. So this is all enrollment represented that way. If I'm understanding your question, you're asking if we can break it out by seat type, break out that enrollment by seat type, and we can work with our partners to get that information differently. And in March, we're going to be reporting out on the whole anyway, so we can certainly do.
But more so, my emphasis is actually on the federal poverty levels than the race pieces.
Okay, you were concerned about FPL. Sure, well, we can do
yes,
that for that also.
I don't want the governance committee to think that the all of the Durham Pre-K dollars are going to only higher income families. You know what I mean? And so I'm not that they don't go towards them, but I just want to make sure that that part of the picture is, you know, as clear as it is to those of us who work in this every day, all day.
Right. Okay. So Tasha, if you'll go to slide 25, that's the federal poverty slide. So this slide, so that one, no, not that one, go back. We're looking at slide 25. One more there. Thank you. Okay, so this is federal poverty for all children enrolled in NC Pre-K and Durham Pre-K presently. And we did pull out the Durham Pre-K poverty enrollment in a different slide. If I'm hearing you right, you'd like us to do this. You would like us to break out by seat type all of them? Or perhaps I'm not understanding your question, and we can have a discussion offline and prepare whatever information you think might be helpful.
Let's talk offline, and then, you know, we can kind of like really like get into the meat of it.
Okay. Like I said, anybody who has information that you think would help guide your decision-making, guide your learning about the program, let us know. And we have tons of data and we're happy to adapt. So we will go back and we'll look at preparing in March some further information. Okay, so Tosh, if you will go to the community meeting slide, which is slide 32. We'll move on from this topic. But again, if there are other questions or people have input around these demographics, if you want to see things a different way, please do let us know, and we're happy to take a deep dive. So I'm going to turn it over to Tamara Mathis, our Durham Pre-K director, talk about a couple of other items on our agenda.
Good morning, everyone. It is still morning, right? I want to talk about a community meeting. The goal of that is to host a convening event to share program progress towards universal access, and for Durham to set a goal to serve, which in Durham is to set a goal to serve 75% of the census of 4-year-olds. Next slide. So we have confirmed the date, and we want you guys to hold the date for June 24th, 2023 for the Durham Pre-K community meeting, an event to report on all that progress that I just mentioned. So other details and time, location will be coming forward.
Yeah, and those of you who've been around in this early childhood space for a long time in Durham, you'll recall that we last had a community convening in 2018, and we've been asked really to revisit that and to have an opportunity for community members to have input and for us to really be accountable to the community for how far we've worked toward our goals. So next slide.
The Governance Committee membership is about that time again to nominate and elect a new vice chair. And so if you would get your email your preference to IOME, if you want to self-nominate or if you want to be elected for be the new vice chair. And we also want to recruit 2 to 4 new members for the fiscal year school year 24. We ask that person be a practicing early educator, either a parent, business or faith leader, or early childhood researcher. So again, we want to recruit 2 to 4 new members for the school year 2024.
And just to let you know, the reason we need to elect a new vice chair is that Lee Boardley, who's our current vice chair, many of you may be aware that she has left her position at Lee as the director of Lee, and she's now working in a different arena, in the health arena. She has a new job, and she has shared with us that because of her responsibilities in her new job, she's going to have to rotate off. We will be celebrating her at our March meeting, but because not only is she a member, but she's also the vice chair, we do need to elect a new vice chair moving forward. IOMA does keep teasing us by saying that, she's going to need to move on. So we do have to keep in the back of our minds that in the future, she is interested in someone else stepping up to be willing to serve as the chair. But right now we're going to, in our March meeting, we're going to need to elect a new vice chair. So we will be emailing you some forms for you if you have someone you'd like to nominate, or for the committee, but also if you're interested in being our vice chair. Those of you who've been with us know that being the vice chair is not a super demanding job, but you do get called upon to step in periodically to lead the meetings. Okay, I'm doing a time check. So Monty, I'm going to turn it over to you and ask you to introduce our Durham's Partnership colleagues.
Yes. So one of the great things about Durham Pre-K is the collaborative nature of this program, and working with community partners. We all make up Durham Pre-K. Each meeting, we've been trying to introduce you to the support staff. There's a lot of work and that goes into supporting this program. And so today we'd like to have Durham's Partnership for Children introduce the support team they have for Durham PreK. And we appreciate all of our partners. And so I'm glad to have them today. Brittany, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Again, I'm Brittany Gregory, the Director of Programs with Durham's Partnership for Children, and I have the honor of serving alongside our NC Pre-K team. This is one of the many components that's in my day-to-day portfolio, as well as our Smart Start initiatives. And yeah, I won't bore y'all with all of those details. What we'll do is just kind of chain and introduce like the next person on the slide. So Jamika, go ahead and share about your role and introduce yourself.
Good morning to everyone. My name is Jamika Wells. I am the NC Pre-K manager with Durham's Partnership for Children. As Brittany mentioned, I have the pleasure of working with our Pre-K team at Durham's Partnership, as well as the team with TCSA and Head Start in Durham Public Schools. And move on to Susanna.
Hey everyone, I'm Susanna Savage, NC Pre-K Teacher Quality Specialist, and I provide support and TA for NC Pre-K teachers throughout the county.
Hi everyone, my name is Grace Brown. I am the Outreach Coordinator at Durham's Partnership for Children. So my role with Durham PreK is just to make sure that families know about the program, the application, and are being connected to that. And I'll pass over to Kendra.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Kendra Brown. I am the Family Engagement Coordinator at Durham's Partnership for Children. So I work with the private sites on making sure that they are reaching their family engagement goals and helping with anything family engagement related that I can.
Good afternoon. I am Marilyn Agostini. I'm brand new to the Durham Partnership for Children and Families, and the NC Pre-K coordinator will help on doing the attendance, making sure our sites are getting reimbursed in a timely manner, and just also supporting the NC Pre-K placement or placement across the board for NC Pre-K and DPK in the upcoming school year.
We'd like to, again, thank the partnership for the work that they do to help make Durham PreK a success. The bios for their staff members will be included in the notes that'll be sent out, so you can learn a little bit more about them. But thank you again for coming today and for all the work you do with Durham PreK.
Thank you for having us. It's been a pleasure and continues to be a pleasure.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to ask Tamara to fill you in about our good news.
Woohoo! All right, go for the gold. Durham was awarded a gold medal for high quality, accessible pre-K. So with the City Health City Assessment Combined Initiative legal analysis with the input of national experts to determine the gold standard for each policy. So the City Health identified which elements are necessary for the best quality policy, gold, of course, good, which is silver, and then of course, passable, which was bronze. So out of 8 of the 10 qualities for the gold, Durham PreK met those benchmarks. So gold requires that over 30% of children are enrolled in pre-K programs. So we met our goal for the City Health Assessment.
And you'll be hearing a lot more about this as we move forward. The City Health folks, in their releases of their benchmark measurements, they focus on the big cities first. This is the first time Durham's been included in their assessment. They're doing a group of smaller cities, and they'll be releasing some information about that moving forward. And as it does, we will forward it to you. But we'll be celebrating this with our elected officials, because to be honest, of all the things they measured, the pre-K access was the only gold medal that Durham received. Durham received 1 gold and 2 bronze medals in other categories, but pre-K was the only one that we were rated gold. So that's pretty exciting. You'll be hearing more about that moving forward. Okay, so we have 1 minute left. In our update, you received a written update, which you can review. Is there anything in there, Tamara, that you want to highlight before we close out our meeting?
We just highlighted the city assessment. We're going to be doing pre-K Q&A beginning in February. So we're going to have office hours that's going to be held twice a week during the daytime and evening. This is a new option for families who have questions regarding the application process. So that would be supported by outreach staff from CCSA and Durham Partnership for Children. So I think that's pretty exciting and new news to share.
Yeah, and our applications open in February for the 23-24 school year. Hard to believe it's time. So February 6th, applications open. Be sure and tell families who have young children to apply.
And the Durham Pre-K Expo is geared to start or to be held on May 20th. So more information about that will be coming as well.
Yeah, and that focuses on our the career development component of our work in building capacity in Durham. So our next meeting is March 16th. I hope everyone will be able to join us. We will try very hard to make the agenda a little less packed, but we will hopefully have additional information about budgeting at that time, and we will take a deeper dive into our demographics. Does anybody have anything they want to share or any announcements before we call for adjournment? Okay, well, we don't have to have a motion to adjourn. We'll just say, does anybody object to adjourning? I'm sorry we held you 1 minute over, but thank you so much for your time. I know on behalf of Yoma, I'll say that we are just always grateful for the really strong attendance we have. Today we had a huge attendance today, and that's just really gratifying for the program and we really appreciate your support. So thanks for being here, and we'll follow up with you with the notes from this meeting. And again, if you have any questions from the update that you read and from the slide deck and the meeting notes, just let us know. Have a great day. Thank you for your service.